Okay, talking about five different 4x4s here and sort of the progression of how they go as we are developing as a program. And give a little context of this for coaches that are watching this who have what they think are a good relay and are figuring out whether to put it together or not put it together, or what order to run their kids, or any of that sort of stuff. So, I'm going to take you through five different 4x4s, some with the same guys, some with different guys. So, the first one that I put up is the 2005 runner-up 4x4. But to talk about 2005, we have to go back to 2004. In 2004, we had a really good team. We had a runner-up in the pole vault, a state champion in the 800, and then a hurdler who placed in both the 110s and the 300s. And we had a really good 4x4. We had a 4x4 that qualified for state, and maybe if we put all our eggs in that basket, would have made state finals and would have placed well. What the coaching staff decided to do is to try to not stretch our hurdler and our 800 runner too much. And so we pulled those two guys off the relay. It was mainly the hurdler we were worried about. Running 6 races over 2 days is a lot of races for a junior. The 800 kid probably could have run it, but then the question became, well, if you pull one of the 4 guys, is it fair to the other 3 that are there, especially the kid that we thought had a chance to win the 800 and ended up winning the 800, of whacking his legs out before we even get to the finals of the 800? And that young man won the 800 by itty-bitty amount at the lean. So in 2004, we've got a really good 4x4. They qualify for the state meet with a tornado delay from Friday to Saturday between the 800 and the 4x4, so it was a little bit different of a sectional. But we decided to bag the relay at the state meet, let an older alternate run to get a chance to compete in the state meet, and we let a younger alternate run to get a chance to learn for next year in the state meet. Then in 2005, we had a relay team that we knew was really, really good. The 4th kid who was not ready to be this young man as a sophomore rounded out and ended up having a great year. The hard thing for us is we had a great relay all year. We were in the hunt all year. We thought we had a chance at winning the thing. And on the day of, our leadoff leg, who was an individual qualifier in the 400, is an extraordinarily tough kid, just was a little bit hesitant. And he didn't run bad, but he didn't run great that day. Puts the baton out in a decent position. Our second leg kid ran great, and we had stacked our 2 fastest guys in the 3rd and 4th position. Partially for recovery purposes. Our hurdler, who was 3rd in the 110s and won the 300s, is going to run 3rd for us. And then our anchor leg is a young man that won the 800 as a junior and was runner-up as a senior. And I think one of the things to think about when you're coaching kids from one year to the next is when that young man won the 800 as a junior, there was some talk of, what's he running for the next year? And the thing that we stressed to him going into his senior year is let's try to score more points in the state meet. So you win as a junior in the 800, you're runner-up as a senior, but you finish 2nd in the 800, and then you finish 2nd in the 4x4, and you scored 16 points instead of 10. So that young man, that was a successful year. But one of my favorite things back from the Track Talk message boards, back when that was a thing, is Randy Wigan, who was a young man from Wheaton-Warrenville South, was talking about this race and referred to Darrell Williams closing like a freight train. If we were running by another 10 meters, Darrell might have had a shot at winning that the next year. But 2nd place was great, highest finish in school history in that event, outstanding. The next year we had is 2008, which was a strange year. I was a distance coach, and we'll see if I can go through this whole video without getting myself sued by upsetting people. We had a sprint coach that was a little bit difficult to work with sometimes, and it ended up affecting what happened in state finals day. So as we go through the whole year, we kind of figure out we have a great 4x4. We used to run at the Gene Armour Invite on the indoor facility of U of I, and we went out and we popped a real big time in that relay. A young man that was a senior that year that had been a transfer athlete really showed us that he was really, really good. We were kind of thinking he was good, but he showed us he was really, really good with that. So we had some guys that were capable. We were on a big time indoors, and we're kind of playing with it outdoors, and we look really, really good. The one change we made during the course of the season is we struggled with who would run what leg. None of the 4 guys wanted to lead off. They were all really good with rolling starts and closed really hard. As the distance coach, I sort of put my foot down that I wanted someone coming out of blocks to lead off the 4x4. I didn't want a stand-up start when other people would be using blocks. So that eliminated 2 of the 4. Two of the 4 guys are 800 guys. Between the other 2 guys, the guy that had a background in the short sprints was better in the blocks, ended up basically taking one for the team and saying, look, I'll run the opening leg. I think I'm a better second, third, or fourth leg, but I'll run the opening leg because no one else can do it. But indoors, the biggest change we did is our best anchor leg was probably Emmett Lorenz. And Emmett was on the state championship 4x8 as a senior, had run the 4x4 pretty much his whole time at Waubonsie Valley. But Emmett didn't run in space or with the lead real well. And so he kept on getting the baton, and then it got interesting because people would catch him, and then he'd kind of have to finish off real hard. And what we decided is we flipped Emmett, for who was a good closer, to the third leg, and we brought Sean Wiggin, who would end up being 4th in the 800 that year, over to the anchor leg because Sean could run in the lead fairly well. He was a really good rhythm runner. He was not a good turnover racer. He did not finish down the home stretch really well. We had Darrell Williams in 2005. You put him on the home stretch, you put someone 50 meters ahead of him, and Darrell on a 100-meter sprint with a 50-meter head start might get the guy ahead of him. Sean was a guy that was just trying to hang on. So where the conflict in perception and the way things go in that relay happens is we're planning on the whole year. We're going to flip Sean, who's the anchor leg, with Emmett, who's the third leg, when we get to state finals and we need someone that can finish off the best of the best when it really matters. What happened at state prelims is at the check-in on Friday, and the couple coaches that got caught with this that are still not happy about the check-in procedure at state will probably chirp a little bit about this. The head coach, who was the sprint coach, disappeared with half the 4x4 and almost got the team disqualified. Simply the fact that I was standing with the clerk saying, look, here are 2 guys that are in. You can check them in now. I have 5 of the other kids that we brought down scouring the campus looking for the 2 sprinters and the sprint coach. It got a little interesting. I was begging and pleading him to not scratch the relay. I had 2 of the alternates ready to go, but they were significantly slower. And so it had kind of been like that all year, and it had been a rough season. And at some point, when I'm retired and all of my bosses from that year are retired, I'll tell the full story of that season. But how that ended up impacting us is it was such a rough year, and there was some difficulty and friction within the coaching staff. When we went to state finals and went to check in, we kept the same order. Scott Mankivsky, Mark Presley, Emmett Lorenz, Sean Wiggin. We won a great race. We ended up second. Sean is not a really good closer, and so I had talked to Sean going into the 800 and told him the same thing going into the 4x4 about, look, you've got to be in the lead with 200 to go, 150 to go, 100 meters to go, because you're not going to catch anybody. You want to just hang on. And for different circumstances, the sprint coach never rode with the team. So I'm driving the bus back, and the kids very sheepishly ask, Coach, can we ask you a question? And we don't want you to get mad. I said, okay. Why didn't you flip Emmett and Sean? And I actually had to pull over the road. I got so upset and was almost in tears. And I had to tell them I simply forgot that that's what we were supposed to do. And we had talked about it all year. I was so worried about getting you guys checked in because on finals day, I assigned one of my athletes from the 4x8 to follow the sprint coach and the sprinters around and keep me informed by text message of where they were so we wouldn't get DQ'd. I was so worried about checking in the relay team. We never flipped the order of it. And if you watch the video, Emmett Lorenz, the third leg, hands off the baton in the lead. We're not physically in the lead, but we're the first to hand off. If we'd had Emmett in the anchor leg, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe Zion Benton takes us and they still win and we finish second. Maybe Emmett pulls it out. One of my lessons there is you got to have a cohesive coaching staff. Like, we had a coaching staff where there were conflicts and we didn't get along, and it showed up in how things happened. And I will spend up and down the line 100 times apologizing to all 4 kids in that relay that I simply forgot to tell them, flip the third leg and the fourth leg. And it was entirely my fault. It slipped my mind. I was thinking about other stuff on that day. Third team that I'll include in, because I had a Twitter exchange with the Minooka coach, Lundo, the 2012 relay team, which was just as talented as all those other ones. And again, I'll try to refrain from doing anything that's going to end up with me having to meet with my principal or superintendent. I'll lead with this. The previous year, it's an adult talking about adult. This situation, it's an adult talking about, at that time, a teenager. I don't want to be judged on anything that I did when I was a teenager, and I hope that the young person that made this a rough go has had some life lessons and has figured out what happened and is a stronger person at the end of it. I'm a coach. I've got 40 some odd years of doing this. If I'm emulating Coach Carius, I'm going to have 50 some odd years of being a coach. Everyone that comes through our program at the most gets 4 years of being high school athletes. So 2012, we've got a relay team that we thought was pretty good. We popped our big time in Plainfield South. We ended up running close to state qualifying time there. The interesting thing with that one is I had told the kids, I was adamant we were not going to go back to Illinois Prep Top times. The previous year, it was extraordinarily packed. It wasn't especially well run. And it wasn't a fun experience. And so I was adamant we weren't going to go back regardless of how fast anybody ran. All 4 of those kids had never been to Prep Top times. They'd never been to the state meet. Run really big times all years indoors. And begged me. And I finally told them, I said, look, I'm going to call each of your parents. If they all want to go and you don't have airline tickets for a vacation and you're all in town, we'll go. I called. 2 of the family changed their airline reservations because they wanted their kid to run in this race. And that year at Illinois Prep Top Times was amazing. We finished 4th, but got 2nd place because 2 teams were disqualified. And I'll for the rest of my life poke Coach Evans about whether it was him or whether it was Minooka's team with Coach Lundeen. We finished 4th. But what we got coming out of that is we were working with order. So indoors, we led off with our hurdler, Kyle Schaefer, who's an extraordinarily tough kid, really persistent kid, who was rattled by nothing. He'd get us out to the lead, and then we'd fight and hang on to the lead. And then what we had is our 4th leg that year was a little bit off the mark of everybody else. We felt throughout the indoor season and then throughout most of the outdoor season that we had 3 guys that we knew that were a lock that were going to go under 50 seconds in the quarter on their relay. Our 4th kid that we used indoors and that we used most of outdoors couldn't crack 52. Now, we had another young man who's pretty talented, but we had trouble getting him healthy. Typically the meat grinder of football and then some commitments he had with show choir. We had trouble getting him in shape and sharp and healthy and good training blocks. And it ended up working out for him the next year, 2013. But 2014, he ended up spending the year as an alternate with where we thought he could go but hadn't shown us he could be there. But we decided we were going to move that young man who couldn't break 52 from the 3rd leg up to the 2nd leg. I really respect what I've seen Neekwood do a handful of times. Neekwood will run slowest guy to fastest guy, and they'll just chase and run down and chase and run down and chase and run down. And I wasn't brave enough to do that with my leadoff leg. We took our anchor leg from indoors, ran him first. We took our anchor leg or our leadoff leg from indoors, Schaefer, the hurdler, and ran him anchor. Put our 3rd leg, who I end up hurting his feelings and went on, had a great time as a decathlete for Augustana and is currently coaching in Indiana. I forget if he's coaching at Carmel or one of the other. It's one of the powerhouse schools in Indiana. I forget where he's at. Moved him up to 2nd, and then we took our 2nd leg and ran him back at 3rd so that we would have 2 legs to catch up on any missed distance that our kid that ran 52nd goes in. My sprint coach and I had the idea throughout the course of that year in 2012 that we wanted to try our best 100-200 kid in the quarter, and we threw him in a couple times. He ran 50 point, and then he ran 51, and he was sniffing 49, and he was considerably faster than the 4th leg that we had been using. And the alternate that we had before outside of this 100-200 kid was also around 52, 53. And so we had told the 52 kid, look, we're probably going to swap you out. My mistake is I told him it'll probably be at state finals. We were running 320, 321 with the kids that we had, and the previous years, 2005 and 2008, of coming in second is probably part of what drove me to really want to get after it with this relay that I thought had a chance to win. And so I needed to see that our sprinter could run at that caliber, at that intensity level. And so we run him at sectionals, and I really upset the 4th place or the 4th leg in terms of feeling like he should have been able to be on the qualifying team, even if he got pulled in prelims or even if he got pulled in finals. And this is 8 years later, and I still feel bad that I hurt his feelings. But we put the sprinter in. The sprinter runs 49 high, 50 point low. The relay team runs 317 something. We're close to the top seed. We're the 2nd or 3rd seed, and right in the neighborhood of the top seed. And if I live to be 100, I won't be able to explain what happened to us in prelims. The young man that we put in, and again, this is a teenager that's it's hard for me to say negative things about a teenager. I don't know if he had a race plan that he couldn't execute. I don't know if he was a deer caught in the headlights. There is some thought that perhaps he chose not to run fast. I couldn't tell you what it is. The young man went from running 50 point to 56, and the 3rd leg ran like a monster, tried to get us in, and couldn't run a 45 to get us qualified, and the same thing with the anchor leg. If I live to be 1,000, I have 2 kids that I screwed with that relay and that decision. My leadoff leg, John O'Burke, was fine. The next year, he gets an all-state medal in the 4x2. My anchor leg, Kyle Schaefer, ends up medaling and being all-state in the 300 hurdles. And one of the other alternates ends up being on a state qualifying 4x4 the next year that was 11th in prelims and then missed qualifying by like a quarter of a second in 2 places. And he was fine with that. My 3rd leg, Austin Ameri, and then the young man that I took off the relay, Kyle Kluver. If I live to be 100, if I do this for years and years and years, I made a mistake that cost those kids a chance to be all-state. And, if we ever in my life win an all-state or win a state championship medal or trophy where I get one of those, it's going to end up in the Mary household, or it's going to end up in the Kluver household, or if we get a couple of each of one of those guys will get something. The both of them are amazing young men who've become amazing adults, and that one was rough. But last one that I'm going to talk about is 2013 relay. So after having a disappointing year the previous year, I really want to put an emphasis on the 4x4, and we grabbed 2 guys that were really good, really tough kids, and said, look, even though you guys are 100-meter guys and 200-meter guys, you're going to run the 4x4, because I want to get John O'Burke and I want to get Jeff Markham down to state in the 4x4. And those 2 kids, Tony Derns and Kyle Neese, both jumped in full bold, 100% into it. And they understood that I was trying to make something up to John Burke and I was trying to make something up to Jeff Markham. And those were their buddies. All 4 of those guys were football track guys. They were really, really close. It was an incredible season. They finish 11th by like a quarter of a second. So we missed placing by a quarter of a second in 2 places. And I go down. I'm almost in tears. I'm huffing and puffing and trying to get it out like, hey, you guys didn't make it. And they go, that's okay, coach. We finished 11th with the fastest time of the year. We're great. I went, oh, You're fine? Okay, I'll stop being mopey about it. So what I'm trying to say with all of this is relays are about personality, relays are about ability, and relays are about buying in. And I can go back and look at how that relay ran and nitpick 100 different things about their training, about the setup, about our approach, mindset, conversations I had, who I pulled, who I left in. When it boils down to this, you want 4 guys who want to be in that relay, who believe in the other 3 guys in the relay, and believe in the training that they've been through and want to go out and do it. The next year from the runner-up 4x4, 2009, my third leg that I forgot to move to the anchor leg, I usually let the seniors focus on open events if they so choose. And I was kind of angling for that kid to win state in the 800. And a couple things happened with the 4x8 going into sectional. And I apologized to him because I wasn't planning on running him at the sectional or the state prelims in the 4x8. I was planning on bringing my alternate in and letting that relay. I thought that relay with the alternate could place anywhere from 5th to 9th. Well, anywhere from 5th to 12th, kind of, if I'm being more honest. But Emmett Lorenz stopped me and he said, look, I want to run the relay. Like, I want to run the open too, but I want to go win the relay. And that team went out there and 3 of those guys PR'd and we run 7:43. And it's the only time in my life that I told someone, look, I want you to jog. I told my anchor leg that day, I want you to jog until someone catches you. So he runs 56, 57 opening quarter, then jogs for 300 meters, and then got caught in sprints. So it's one of those things where have buy-in, have kids that believe in the system, and I'm a big believer. If you don't have 4 kids that want to run the relay, blow it up. Because when you stick a kid in a relay that doesn't want to be there, things aren't going to go well. So that's my piece on the 4x4s that we've run in 2004, 2005, 2008, 2012, and 2013.